At 75, my knees ached, burned, and clicked with every step. Doctors said it was just age. But then I discovered this one simple turmeric and black pepper mix, and everything changed. Within days, the stiffness faded, and I could finally walk pain-free. Here's what I did differently. Part 1. The clicks I ignored. I used to dismiss the clicking in my knees as just one of those aging things. You know, those tiny signs we wave off, thinking they're just harmless parts of growing old. My knees would crack whenever I stood up from the sofa or walked up a flight of stairs. It wasn't painful at first, just a sound, like two old wooden boards shifting. But over time, the sound came with a burn, then tightness, and eventually, pain so sharp I started avoiding the stairs altogether. At 75, you'd think it's normal, right? That's what I believed too, until I couldn't sleep at night because of the discomfort. Walking to the mailbox became a challenge. I had to plan my movements. And I began using my hands to push myself up from chairs, even low beds. A trip to the doctor confirmed what I feared: osteoarthritis, common in older adults. But what I didn't expect was how little help they offered. Take these pills, they said, and try to stay active. The medications numbed the pain, yes, but left me bloated, sluggish, and tired. That's when I decided to dig deeper. Part 2, a remark from my neighbor. It was during a quiet afternoon walk, with a cane, I should add, that I ran into Mrs. Javid, my neighbor. She must be in her 80s, yet her steps were light, and she carried her groceries like a woman half her age. I asked her jokingly if she had a secret. And to my surprise, she leaned closer and said, "Turmeric and black pepper, every morning before sunrise." It saved my knees. Now, I'd heard of turmeric. Who hasn't? It's that bright golden spice we toss into curries. But I'd never considered it as medicine. Black pepper? I thought that was just for seasoning my eggs. Still, the way she moved, the clarity in her eyes, it stayed with me. That night, I searched for hours online. I discovered story after story, research after research, talking about the power of this ancient mix. Part 3, Discovering the science behind the spice. Turmeric, I learned, contains curcumin, a compound known for its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. But curcumin isn't easily absorbed in the body. That's where black pepper comes in. It contains piperine, which increases the absorption of curcumin by up to 2,000%. Without it, most of the turmeric we eat just passes through. One 2017 study published in Arthritis Research and Therapy found that patients with knee osteoarthritis who took curcumin experienced significant reductions in pain and stiffness, comparable to ibuprofen, but without the side effects. And when paired with black pepper, the benefits amplified. This wasn't folk wisdom. This was science. So I made up my mind. I would try it for 30 days, every single morning, and observe what happened. Part 4, my first week with the mix. I started simple. Every morning, just before sunrise, I mixed half a teaspoon of organic turmeric powder with a pinch of black pepper into a warm glass of water. I added a dash of coconut oil too, as I'd read that fat helps curcumin absorption. The first few days didn't bring dramatic change, but I noticed something subtle: my knees weren't as stiff in the morning. By day 4, I could get out of bed a little faster. The pain was still there, but the burning was duller. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up from knee discomfort. I didn't want to get my hopes too high, so I kept a journal. Every day, I noted the tightness, the pressure, and how long I could walk before needing rest. By the end of week 1, I felt more alert, more balanced. Not just in my knees, but in my gut, my energy levels, and even my mood. I didn't expect that. Could turmeric be working deeper than I imagined? Part 5, What inflammation was doing to my joints. One night, while sipping the mix, I came across a research paper from Frontiers in Pharmacology. It said chronic inflammation is often behind joint deterioration and aging, not just mechanical wear and tear. And curcumin, being one of the most powerful natural anti-inflammatories, works by inhibiting inflammatory cytokines and enzymes, including COX-2, the same enzyme targeted by many pain relief drugs. But unlike those drugs, turmeric didn't come with risks of stomach bleeding or liver damage. It was gentle, natural, and, when taken consistently, powerful. I realized that all those years of processed foods, sugary snacks, and lack of movement had created a silent fire inside my joints. Turmeric wasn't just cooling that fire, it was rebuilding the environment inside my body. Even my digestion improved. My bloating reduced, and I felt lighter after meals. I started craving fewer sweets. The effect wasn't just joint deep. This mix was rewiring something bigger. Part 6, What I Almost Did Wrong. Around day 10, I made a mistake. I skipped the mix one morning, just to see. The next day, my knees felt heavier. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe not. But I doubled down. However, in my excitement, I started adding too much turmeric, thinking more is better. That was a bad move. My stomach reacted. I felt mild nausea and a strange aftertaste that lingered for hours. Turns out, too much curcumin can irritate the gut, especially without enough fat. I learned the hard way that balance is key. A half teaspoon of turmeric, 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper, and a teaspoon of healthy fat, coconut oil or olive oil, was enough. I also learned that heating the mix slightly improved absorption further. So I adapted. I started making a golden paste. I mixed turmeric and black pepper into a small jar with coconut oil and warmed it gently. 1 spoonful every morning, stirred into warm almond milk, became my new ritual. It tasted comforting, like something ancient and healing. And each day, the stiffness receded. Part 7, A Change in How I Moved. By the 3rd week, something remarkable happened. I stood up from the couch without bracing myself on the armrests. It was a small act, but it meant the world to me. The click in my knees was still there, but it was no longer accompanied by that sharp burn. I could walk to the garden and back without stopping halfway to stretch my legs or ease the pressure. One morning, I walked past the hallway mirror and noticed something strange. I was standing taller. My shoulders weren't hunched. My steps were smoother, not the slow, uncertain shuffle I'd developed over the last year. My body wasn't just reacting, it was changing. I began to trust my knees again. And when you've lived with daily joint pain, that trust is a victory. The turmeric mix had become more than a remedy. It was a symbol of healing, of hope, of my body's ability to recover even at 75. Part 8, What I Added Alongside Turmeric. I knew turmeric couldn't do it all alone. So I began supporting it with other essentials. The first addition was omega-3 fatty acids, specifically from flaxseed oil. Omega-3s help reduce joint stiffness and support cell membrane flexibility, allowing nutrients to flow better to inflamed areas. Next, I included magnesium, something most older adults lack. Magnesium helps relax muscles and supports nerve signaling. I took it in the form of magnesium glycinate before bed, and it helped ease the tension in my legs. Collagen was another vital piece. I added a scoop of collagen peptides to my morning smoothie, along with turmeric paste and almond milk. Collagen helped rebuild the cartilage that had thinned with age, offering cushioning to my joints. Lastly, I reduced inflammatory foods. I let go of refined sugar, processed meats, and white bread. Instead, I leaned into green vegetables, wild berries, fermented foods, and hydration. Healing, I learned, wasn't about one thing, it was about building a team inside your body. And turmeric was the captain. Part 9, The Power of Routine Over Quick Fixes. Before turmeric, I chased quick fixes, ointments, supplements, even painkillers. Some helped briefly, but none rebuilt the strength I needed to walk, bend, or even rest comfortably. What turmeric taught me was the quiet power of routine. Every morning, the golden paste. Every evening, a short walk. Each meal, an opportunity to either feed inflammation or fight it. And little by little, I chose healing. There were still days when I felt the old ache creep in, after too much time on my feet, or on rainy days when humidity tugged at my joints. But they became less frequent, less intense. More importantly, I didn't fear them anymore. Because I knew I had a tool that worked, not overnight, not magically, but consistently. That golden mix in a cup became my lifeline. And somewhere along the journey, I stopped identifying with pain. I no longer introduced myself to new doctors with, "I have bad knees." I had strong knees, healing knees. Part 10. I wasn't alone, others found relief too. I shared my experience in a community forum for seniors dealing with joint pain. What surprised me was how many others had started experimenting with turmeric too, each with their own tweaks, timing, and testimonies. There was Margaret from Ohio, age 81, who had struggled with rheumatoid arthritis for over a decade. She began adding turmeric to her morning oatmeal, along with black pepper and coconut oil. Within 6 weeks, she could grip her gardening tools again without crying out in pain. Then there was Thomas, a 68-year-old retired firefighter from Arizona, who mixed turmeric powder with ginger tea every evening. He said it helped ease his hip stiffness, allowing him to return to his morning hikes. These weren't isolated miracles. These were signs, real stories, of the body responding to something simple, natural, and powerful. The common thread among all of us was consistency. We didn't take turmeric once and expect magic. We made it part of our rhythm, our nourishment. It reminded me, healing isn't lonely when we share it. Part 11. How turmeric supports more than just joints. What began as a fix for my knees unfolded into something deeper. My mind felt clearer. I could remember names quicker, focus longer, and sleep soundly. Could turmeric influence the brain too? As it turns out, curcumin, turmeric's active compound, crosses the blood-brain barrier. It reduces inflammation in brain tissue, supports dopamine and serotonin balance, and may even help flush out beta-amyloid plaques linked to Alzheimer's. That might explain why my sleep improved. Or why my mood lifted. I no longer felt trapped inside an aching body. I was moving, thinking, and resting better. And there was something else. My immune system felt stronger. Fewer colds. Faster recoveries. Turmeric's natural antibacterial and antiviral properties were likely supporting my immune response, while reducing chronic low-grade inflammation in my body. It was like turning down the internal fire that had been smoldering for years. I didn't realize how much noise my joints had been making, until they quieted down. Part 12. Nighttime inflammation and how I fought it. The worst flare-ups used to strike at night. I'd lie awake, my knees throbbing. The sheets felt heavy. No sleeping position seemed right. I learned this had a reason. Our bodies naturally repair tissues at night, and inflammation can actually spike during these repair cycles. So I adapted. I moved my turmeric ritual to after dinner, making a warm golden milk with turmeric paste, a pinch of cinnamon, a crack of black pepper, and unsweetened almond milk. Sometimes I added a tiny bit of raw honey for flavor. The results were subtle at first, deeper sleep, fewer midnight awakenings. But over time, it became clear, my body was healing while I rested. That nighttime routine became sacred. I turned off screens, dimmed the lights, sipped my golden milk, and let my joints soften with warmth. Healing, I found, wasn't just physical. It was also about creating peace before sleep. Part 13. What the science says about turmeric and aging joints. Curcumin, the golden molecule inside turmeric, has been studied for decades, but in the last few years, research on its impact on joint health in older adults has truly expanded. Clinical trials have shown that curcumin can significantly reduce markers of inflammation, like C-reactive protein, CRP, and interleukin-6, both of which are elevated in individuals with osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. One randomized controlled trial published in the journal Phytotherapy Research found that patients with knee osteoarthritis who took 500 milligrams of curcumin 3 times daily experienced similar pain relief to those taking ibuprofen, but without the gastrointestinal side effects. That was stunning. A root could rival a pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory. Other studies using turmeric extracts standardized to high curcumin concentrations showed not just pain reduction, but improvements in joint stiffness and physical function. For seniors, that means fewer pills, fewer side effects, and greater mobility. Turmeric doesn't just mask pain, it addresses the root, chronic inflammation. And unlike painkillers, it doesn't come with the long-term risk of ulcers, liver damage, or cardiovascular stress. It's nature's answer to an age-old problem. Part 14, How I Modified My Turmeric Mix for Maximum Benefit. At first, I was just sprinkling turmeric onto vegetables or into tea. But I learned that how you take turmeric determines how well your body absorbs it. Curcumin, though powerful, has low bioavailability. It's hard for your body to absorb it on its own. So I refined my approach. I began using a turmeric paste, made from simmering turmeric powder with water until it thickened. I added black pepper, containing piperine, which has been shown to enhance curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. I also included a source of fat, like coconut oil or almond milk, because curcumin is fat-soluble. My final mix was simple. 1 teaspoon turmeric paste. A pinch of black pepper. 1 teaspoon coconut oil or ghee. 1 cup warm almond milk. I took it every night, like clockwork. This one adjustment made a noticeable difference. My digestion improved. My knees felt better in the mornings. Even my skin looked healthier, less dry, less blotchy. Over time, I also experimented with adding other anti-inflammatory spices, like cinnamon and ginger. But turmeric remained the star. This golden blend became a daily ritual, not just a remedy. Part 15, The Moment I Realized I Was Living Pain-Free. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic healing moment. But one morning, as I was walking across the kitchen to make tea, I noticed something missing. The tightness in my knees. The cracking. The hesitation. It simply wasn't there. I paused mid-step. I bent down, not slowly, not cautiously, and picked up a spoon that had fallen to the floor. No burn. No stiffness. No pain. I stood up, stunned. Was this what normal felt like? Had I truly forgotten how effortless movement could be? Later that week, I walked up the stairs of the library without leaning on the railing. I sat through a 2-hour film at the community center without shifting in my seat from discomfort. I danced, yes, danced, with my granddaughter in the living room, twirling her in circles. The joy wasn't just in the movement. It was in the freedom. I had regained something I feared was lost forever, ease. Part 16, How My Nights Changed After My Inflammation Dropped. Before I began my turmeric journey, my nights were fragmented. I'd lie awake listening to the soft ticking of the clock, shifting positions to ease the burning tension in my joints. Sleep came in short, restless spurts. Some nights I'd make it to 2 or 3 a.m. before finally dozing off. But once the inflammation began to subside, I noticed a profound shift, not just in my knees, but in my rest. The warmth in my legs at night faded. My body no longer jolted me awake with sharp signals of discomfort. Instead, I'd slip into sleep like easing into a warm bath. There's a deep relationship between inflammation and sleep. Chronic inflammation disrupts melatonin production, the very hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycles. And sleep deprivation, in turn, increases inflammation. It's a vicious cycle. By addressing the root, by calming the internal fire, my body was finally able to rest. And when sleep became deep and uninterrupted, my energy during the day returned. I could think clearly. I didn't need that second cup of coffee. I laughed more. I remembered names again. Sleep was no longer a battle, it was healing. Part 17, What I Stopped Doing That Helped Even More. Healing wasn't just about what I started doing, it was also about what I stopped. I let go of some habits that were quietly feeding the inflammation I was trying to reduce. I stopped eating late at night, especially processed snacks. Turns out, eating just before bed spikes blood sugar and inflammatory markers. I stopped drinking sugary sodas and fruit juices, even the ones labeled natural. Sugar is a well-documented driver of inflammation, and cutting it helped me more than I anticipated. I also began to move my body more. Not aggressively. Just gentle morning stretches, a short walk after lunch, and some balance exercises in the evening. These light movements kept the joints lubricated and my muscles engaged. But perhaps the most important thing I let go of was doubt. I stopped thinking that age meant inevitable decline. That pain was something I had to just live with. I allowed myself to believe that healing, even at 79, was still possible. That mindset, paired with practical changes, was transformative. Part 18. My message to anyone who wakes up in pain. If you're someone who dreads the morning because your knees burn, if you've been told, it's just aging, I want to tell you this: pain is a signal, not a sentence. Your body is still listening. It wants to heal. It just needs the right support. Turmeric isn't magic. It's not a cure-all. But in my experience, it was a catalyst. It marked the beginning of me reclaiming control, not just over my joints, but over my life. Don't wait for the pain to get worse. Don't wait until the stairs feel like mountains. Start with something small. A teaspoon of turmeric. A few deep breaths in the morning. A decision to care for yourself not with fear, but with hope. Because I'm here to tell you, from a place of peace and strength, that healing is real. And sometimes, it starts with something as simple as a warm cup of golden milk, and the belief that your body still wants to move through this world with grace.